pages 73 to 77 of The Perfect Hamburger. So do you remember Joe and Mr. Borthwick have gone round to see Mrs. Bailey's daughter, Olive Bailey, to ask her if she can help them with the spice mix that they desperately need to get Mr. Borthwick's burger place back on track. Please try to help us. Olive Bailey smiled at Joe. I was going to go on to say that there is something I might be able to do. I still have my mother's notebooks in the attic. I never got round to throwing them out. I think that some of them have recipes in them, but I'm not sure. Both Joe and Mr. Borthwick jumped to their feet at the same time. We should be grateful if you'd let us see them, Mr. Borthwick said. We'd take great care of them, Joe added. Olive Bailey left the two of them for a few minutes to return, looking rather dusty, with several old notebooks. Here, she said, handing the books to Mr. Borthwick. With any luck, you will find what you need in there. Joe could not wait until they got back to Mr. Borthwick's to look in the notebooks. As they drove back, he thumbed through the thick books. Inside, written in a rather spidery handwriting, was recipe after recipe. Take 2 pinches of this and 3 spoons of that. Take 3 apples and cut them into squares. Take 2 potatoes and put them in a pot, and so on. There are thousands and thousands of recipes here, Joe complained. Just look for one which has spice written at the top, suggested Mr. Borthwick. That's the one we're after. But I can't, Joe said sadly. None of them has anything written at the top. There was only one thing that Joe and Mr. Borthwick could do. They would have to go through all the recipes one by one, choosing those that looked as if they might be for the spice. Then, having done this, they would have to test each of them in turn. If only she'd labelled her recipes, Joe wailed as he and Mr. Borthwick measured out ingredients for the 40th time. It would have been so much easier for us right now. Slowly, they worked through the notebooks. As they neared the end, Joe began to despair. As they tried out the last recipe, he knew that they would fail. He hardly had the energy to measure out the ingredients, and Mr. Borthwick barely bothered to taste the mixture that they had made. Any good? Joe asked as Mr. Borthwick put his tongue into the mixture on the spoon. For a few seconds, Mr. Borthwick said nothing, and then he merely shook his head. Taste it yourself, he said. Joe took a little of the mixture and dabbed it on the tip of his tongue. No, that was not it. It was far too peppery. That's it, Joe, Mr. Borthwick said wearily. There's only one thing to do. What's that? Joe asked, dreading the answer. I'm going to place an advertisement in the newspaper saying that we will definitely be closing next week. I shall thank all my old customers and leave it at that. He looked round at the familiar cookers and the tatty stools that he had known for so many years. Then he stepped out of the door and was gone.